Assalamualaikum everybody, I'm Sharmina and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to share with you how to very easily make baklava. Now if you want to make the authentic baklava, the process will be lengthy and you will have to use more authentic ingredients. But the one I'm going to use or make is my version of baklava, the easier way. Good of both worlds. You get to have baklava and it's easy. So without further ado, let's get started. For the baklava itself, you will need phyllo dough. This is a 16-ounce box, 1 pound. Comes with 2 packages. You will need butter. You will need some ground cinnamon. And you will need, of course, some nuts. If you want it more authentic, you can go all the way and use pistachio for the whole thing. But pistachios are first of all expensive and not necessarily something I care for. So I usually use mixed nuts. Unsalted is better, but I always use the salted one because that's the easiest one to find very easily. You will need about a pound of any sort of nuts, but I usually go for this container and it has only 14.75 pounds. Ounces. As a result, I'm not able to use the whole, but then this is enough. For the syrup itself, you will need sugar, vanilla, honey, and some water. That it is. So without further ado, let's get started. Let's start off with a clean surface, okay? And then the nut container that I had shown you earlier, I went ahead and blended them, made them into powder. You can use a food processor, a regular blender, or you can chop them up. I don't like big chunks in my baklava because it's supposed to be nice, soft, crunchy, and then when you bite into something super hard, not so pleasant. So this is mine. I used blender. Unfortunately, my blender was a little bit wet and I didn't realize, so my nut mix became a little more creamier than I had expected. But I'll give it a try and see what happens. So here is the mixed nut, crushed mixed nuts, blended. I'm going to add some cinnamon into it. But before I add my cinnamon, let me go ahead and show you what I'm doing here. I'm melting 2 sticks of butter. 1 stick is half a cup. There are 2 sticks, so that's a cup. Now you can always microwave and melt your butter, but every time I try doing that, the microwave gets into a mess because the butter just pops and there's butter everywhere. So I will just go ahead and use a small pot to melt my butter. Now I'm going to go ahead and add the ground cinnamon, just 1 teaspoon. Seems like very little, but trust me, 1 teaspoon goes a very long way. So you add the cinnamon right into the nuts and you mix them up really well. No sugar needed. Sugar is only added when you're adding the syrup. So the nuts are all mixed up really well with the cinnamon. Make sure you mix it well. It's hard to tell if it got mixed because the colors are so similar, but mix them well. My butter is still melting. Now starts the real part. Let's get the phyllo dough out. I'm going to start with 1 bag at a time. Get some wet paper towels so as you're working with it, you can cover it up. So this is it. So just open it up and make sure the phyllo dough is nicely thawed. You don't want it to be crunchy because it will break, because these are very fragile. They can break and crack very easily. So there's 2 different ways you can make this. I normally used to always stack them up, put nuts in between the stacks and make like a fat baklava pieces, but then they turned out to be too thick. So very recently I started actually rolling them up and making a smaller size of baklava pieces. So I will start, let me make some space over here, with 2 little slices of the phyllo dough. Oh, look, it's breaking already. Look, I don't want a broken piece on the bottom, so I will try and get an unbroken one. Now that I have a nice sheet, unbroken sheet, you will need some sort of a brush to apply the butter. If you're not comfortable making this on a regular surface, just make it on the tray that you're going to bake it in. So here is my melted butter. I'm going to very gently put some over here so that I'm going to try so that it doesn't break. Applied first layer of butter, and now I'm going to put the second layer of my phyllo dough on top of it. They are not too easy to handle, so take your time. The only thing about making this, it's a little bit time consuming because of how many layers you want to add and things like that, and how it falls apart. So just have some patience and you'll get there. Trust me, it's absolutely worth it. And if it's inside not too straight and a little bit folded, that's fine. No one will see it. I will do this. I will repeat this 4 times. So I'll have 4 layers of baklava or 4 layers of phyllo dough before I actually add the nuts. Okay, 4 layers are ready. In between each layer there is melted butter. The very top layer has very little butter on it just so that it stays put. I'm going to add about a teaspoon or more nut mix over here. Just sprinkle it everywhere. Might end up using actually more because there's a lot of nut mix I have. Actually, just eyeball it. Put as much as you think you want. It feels like it's little, but once you fold it or roll it up, there's going to be a lot of it inside. So no need to worry about, oh, I haven't added enough. All right, that should be good. Now I'm going to try and roll it this way. Horizontally. You can roll it vertically if you like. But there. I think I'll have to add a few more nuts because in my head I was thinking I'm going to roll it this way. So I didn't add too much over here. So I'm going to add some more. All right. Perfect. Now roll it up. There you go. That's all there is to it. And I'm done with layering the baklava. So now that I have managed to roll them all up, I've made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rolls. Each of them has 5 pieces of phyllo dough. Probably the first one has 4, but I will tell you this, it wasn't easy. Look, I even messed up. These are the messed up phyllo dough. When I tried to separate them, they all were stuck with each other and they ripped and fell apart, and I had lost my cool for a second and I did this. So don't worry if that happens, you'll still have plenty. So this is what I have right now. Now I'm going to use my knife to cut them all, and after that I will do the next step. when you're cutting them, make sure that you're cutting them all the way through, because if you don't, then once they're done baking, it's going to be very crunchy, and if you want to separate them, they will break. I mean, you can always use a knife, but if you cut them ahead of time nice and all the way through, it will be easier for you later on. Now that I'm done cutting into the pieces that I wanted, I'm going to apply the rest of the melted butter on top of it. While I was cutting them, I set the oven to preheat to 350 degrees. So it's preheating, so it's going to be ready any second. So I'm going to butter the whole top layer very generously. This will help the baklava to be nice and crunchy. So the oven is ready, 350 degrees, preheated. The baklava is ready in the sense that I've applied butter on top of it. Now I'm going to pop them in the oven for 50 minutes. 30 minutes through the baking is when I'm going to start preparing the syrup that I'm going to pour on top of this. Let's start making the syrup. We are 30 minutes into baking the baklava, so we're going to start making the syrup because it's going to take approximately 20 minutes for the syrup to be ready. So first, what you'll need is 1 cup of sugar, and add to that 1 cup of water. That is it. Now we will leave the sugar and water in this pot on high heat until the sugar is dissolved all the way. Now that the sugar is almost dissolved, I'm going to get ready with the honey. Best way to get your honey off the cup all the way, or a tablespoon or a teaspoon all the way, is to add some oil into the cup or the spoon. So you spray some, I'm using some cooking spray, olive oil, or you can use anything, butter, olive oil, anything. So if you spray in here a little bit, what happens is when you pour the honey in it, when you try to pour it out, it pours out easily. I'm going to go ahead and add half a cup of honey. It's a little less than half a cup only because the honey is a bit solidified, so I think it's okay to use a little less. But yep, you see, that's what happens when you put oil ahead of time. That way everything comes off, and everything came off, and there is the honey, and I will let the honey dissolve in there. Add 1 teaspoon vanilla into the sugar, water, and honey mixture. Stir it a little bit and leave it on the stove top on medium-high heat for approximately 15 to 20 minutes. But keep an eye so that it doesn't bubble up too much. Baklava is baked and the syrup is ready too. Now I'm going to pour the syrup all over the baklava. You can spoon it in if you feel like you might end up pouring too much, but I'm going to just go ahead and gently pour just like that. Do you hear that? That's the sound you want to hear. The sizzling sound. How amazing does that look? MashaAllah. Baklava is ready. As you can see, this is what it looks like. It's cooled down a little bit. So I'm gonna try it and show it to you. Let me go ahead and get a small piece out of here. Looks like this. Inside is like this. If you leave it in here for a little bit longer in the syrup, if it focuses, then it will get soaked inside as well. So bismillah. Look at that. You see it? It's not focusing. Brilliant. So, if you want to get a very tasty baklava made at home, super easy, just a bit of patience, then this is the recipe to try. So I decided to plate the baklavas on a pedestal with the lining over here. So I still have a whole bunch left on the tray, but this is how I put them. So please give it a try. I truly believe you will like it, and let me know how it turns out.